in the Kishtwar district of Jammu. Security forces are currently at the spot. So this is a big revelation coming in when it comes to the crackdown on the terror infrastructure in Jammu and Kashmir, ladies and gentlemen, where the Indian Army has now recovered an IED, which is an improvised explosive device near the Dul Hasti hydroelectric plant in the Kishtwar district of Jammu. Currently, as we can see, security forces are at the spot trying to sanitize the entire area and to safely dispose of the IED. I'm joined by my colleague Tejinder Singh Sori, who is getting us this piece of breaking news. Tejinder, over to you.
It is a 390 megawatt power project based in Kishtwar and built on River Chenab. So soon after the security forces got the inputs about the presence of this IED near the Dulhasti power plant, the entire area was cordoned off and the search operation was launched. During this, when this IED was recovered, we are told that bomb disposal squad of the Indian Army and the Jammu and Kashmir police has reached the spot, and right now efforts are on to safely destroy through that area. It is the matter of investigation, but yes, the timely recovery of this IED is a major achievement for the security forces, because if this IED could have exploded, it could have caused a huge damage in the area to the power project and to all the passing vehicles on the highway. If you remember, Aishman, we have been continuously reporting how terrorists are planning to carry out terror attacks across Jammu region.
This was from CNN News 18. Jammu Kashmir News. Indian Army recovers a 10 kg IED near hydroelectric plant in Jammu. So I wanted to talk about unruly waters today. I wasn't sure if I would do it, but because of this recent news, I found it very relevant, and this can be episode 4 of my Jammu series. So in this book, Professor Sunil Amrit has discussed how after partition, India and Pakistan were building dams to direct water towards their respective countries. And I'll just start reading from the book. So he starts with partition, and then he discusses this story by Sadat Hasan Manto. In 1951, he wrote a story called Yazid. The story's opening image is almost shocking. The riots of 1947 came and went, in much the same way as spells of bad weather come and go every season. In his first 2 sentences, Manto evokes the indifference of nature to human suffering. He signals the insignificance of human folly faced with the cycle of the seasons. He also draws the suggestion that partition's violence may have been as natural as the rain's seasons. He also draws the suggestion that partition's violence may have been as natural as the rains, a message colored with irony since it runs counter to so much of Manto's fiction. The most memorable exchange in the story takes place between the village midwife Bakhto and Jina, wife of the protagonist Karimdad. One day Bakhto arrives with the news that the Indians were going to close the river. Jina was nonplussed. What do you mean by closing the river? When Bakhto replies plainly, they will close the river that waters our crops. Jina laughs in disbelief. You talk like a mad woman. Who can close a river? It's a river, not a drain. And then Professor Amrit goes on to show how engineers actually try to control the river and close rivers. In December 1947, the chief engineers of East and West Punjab signed a standstill agreement to maintain supplies to the Bari Doab, one of the Indus River canals ruptured by the border. The headworks fell on the Indian side of the border and most of the canal in Pakistan. When Punjab's canal colonies were built, they had been conceived as a unitary system, its hydraulic parts each useless in isolation. Now the engineers had to improvise, and then the water stopped. On April 1st, 1948, the day the makeshift agreement expired, India shut off the water supply to the canal. The fears that Manto depicted in his fiction mirrored historical events. It's a river, not a drain, but the rivers too were national now. The sudden stoppage raised alarm on the Pakistani side. In the midst of the spring sowing season, the waters to the Upper Bari Doab and Dibalpur canals stopped, disrupting cultivation and threatening the harvest. Residents of Lahore saw the canal that bisected their city empty of water before their eyes was a visceral sign of Pakistan's vulnerability. East Punjab's engineers on the Indian side shut off the canal water to Pakistan without the approval of the central government in Delhi. Nehru worried that this act will injure us greatly in the world's eyes. The conflict over Indus waters joined the territorial conflict between India and Pakistan over the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, whose Hindu ruler had chosen to join India rather than Pakistan under considerable pressure from the Indian side, and against the wishes of the territory's predominantly Muslim population. The tussle over Kashmir erupted into military conflict within months of partition, following the invasion of the territory by Pathan militia from the northwest with covert support from the Pakistani state. Upon Kashmir, both India and Pakistan projected their anxious sense of truncation, in the sense that both sides ended up with less territory than they thought they ought to have, as a result of a hasty partition that satisfied nobody. Both sides came to see control over Kashmir as a vindication of their founding ideologies. The views of the Kashmiris then and now were ignored, but the Kashmir dispute also had a hydraulic dimension, like the waters here. Of the 5 tributaries of the Indus River, one, Jhelum, originates in the Kashmir Valley. Another, Chenab, flows through Jammu, gnawing at India and Pakistan through their inability to find a solution in Kashmir was a quest to control the state's water. So as you heard in the news I played in the beginning, in the river Chenab, there's a dam now, and they found like explosives near the dam. So fortunately, nobody was hurt. But as you can see, like the waters are still politicized today. Winter is approaching, and a lot of people rely on electricity to heat their houses. And some people have protested that there have been a lot of power outages in the Jammu and Kashmir region. And some have said that it's like a collective punishment by the government because of these tensions, like you did this, you did that, blah, blah, blah. One final point I wanted to share today was that I was reading The History of the Jammu State by Mr. Fogel and some other person. They co-authored it together. And they talked about how before, when merchants used to trade before partition, they would go from Delhi to Lahore and then into Jammu. There was one way, and then later on, because of the Sikh disturbances, they chose to go through Haripur, Guler, and then to Jammu. And Guler actually was inundated by a dam project, so a lot of the fertile land was lost. And I watched a documentary made by an artist, Amit Datta, and he was trying to explore like the emotions of the locals when they were encountered with such a huge problem. Like the engineers wanted one thing, the government wants one thing, and then the people and their lives are totally upended because of these projects and politics. It was interesting for me because I always thought of partition as a top-down decision, but as you can see, like once the top-down decision has been made, then people sort of fill in their contributions to whatever has occurred, such as like seasonal changes, dams, and merchant routes. They also respond to different militias who are in the region, like the Sikh marauders. At that point, there was no empire. They were just like claiming territory through their forces. And then later on, it became like more of a formal state. But even when they were starting, people were already responding by changing their ways in how they interacted with the geography. So yeah, peace in the world. Pray for peace in the world. Thanks for listening.